All right, guys, welcome back. This is going to start off our lectures on the Civil War. Now, just to recap, Lincoln is elected in 1860, and very soon after he's elected, the state of South Carolina is going to secede from the Union. They'll be followed by 6 other states. They fire on Fort Sumter in 1861, which essentially starts off this whole Civil War. Now, after that, Lincoln calls for 75,000 volunteers to end the rebellion. Some states wanted to send more than that, but governors in Kentucky and Tennessee refused. Missouri and Maryland really didn't send anything about it. And so Lincoln is sort of caught on this whole issue of exactly what to do. By May, Virginia, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Arkansas had joined the Confederacy, but the western counties in Virginia refused to secede, and they'll become West Virginia in 1863. The issue, though, is the border states. What to do about Delaware, Maryland, Kentucky, and Missouri. Delaware was pretty strong in Union support. They didn't have a whole lot of slaves, but Kentucky wanted to stay neutral. And it wasn't until the South invades Kentucky that they actually will side with the Union. But in Missouri and Maryland, Lincoln is actually going to send in troops to control the situation there, suspend the writ of habeas corpus, meaning you had to be told the charges against you there, and hold people without trial.
May 1861. Maryland, a border state, was torn between Unionists and Southern sympathizers. Baltimore was a city in fear. Armed troops marched the streets. Telegraphs were censored. Newspapers shut down. And the city's leaders, including the grandson of the man who wrote the Star-Spangled Banner, were thrown into military prisons. The man behind this reign of terror was Abraham Lincoln. He knew that if Maryland joined the Confederacy, Washington, D.C. would be cut off from the North. He would do anything necessary to stop it.
One of Lincoln's most important contributions to the presidency, if not the most important, is the development of a war powers notion of the presidency.
He suspended the writ of habeas corpus, so he's trying to isolate and quarantine the die-hard rebels from all their sources of support and smother the rebellion.
Ever since hostilities had begun a month earlier, the president had been vigorously exercising his role as commander-in-chief.
After Fort Sumter, Lincoln took on the first of his series of extraordinary executive powers. He called up the militia, he called for 75,000 troops, and he imposed a blockade on southern ports. And he did all of the above without the consent of Congress, which was in recess. Unheard of.
His strong-arm tactics prevented leaders in Maryland from voting to join the 11 states of the Confederacy in September of 1861. But some felt he had jeopardized the Constitution.
He's condemned for suspending the writ of habeas corpus. The Constitution says that one of the 2 times you can suspend the writ of habeas corpus is during a rebellion.
The Supreme Court demands that the federal government produce a writ of habeas corpus, and Abraham Lincoln just ignores the Chief Justice of the United States. It was very daring and very politically astute.
The court was not the only branch of government that fell under the sway of the man in the executive office. Congress, now representing only pro-Union states, passed bills that retroactively supported military actions like the blockade of the South that Lincoln had taken months earlier.
Lincoln embodies the term commander-in-chief, even though he had less military experience and knowledge than just about anybody who's ever had to practically use that role. He came to it with the briefest of experiences in uniform, a member of a volunteer company in an Indian war in the 1830s.
When Lincoln becomes president, he really knows next to nothing about military affairs. And suddenly he has to sketch out, he has to respond to a number of crises that force him to define, to articulate this commander-in-chief job.
We don't realize that he was the one who really learned how to use the telegraph in real time, communicating with his field officers. He knew what was going on. It changed the whole way the president would be an active participant in a war.
Now, you also have to consider, as we start this war off, what are the advantages on both sides? Well, the South they viewed this as the Second American Revolution, that they were fighting for their freedom just like the Patriots in 1776. They had the advantage of fighting on their own ground. They would know the terrain. They were going to be on defense, which is always easier than being on offense. They also had the better generals, flat out. They were better equipped and trained, or they were better trained generals. The North had the advantages in the tangible resources, things like more railroad tracks, more factories, more population. They could, and more farmland. They could feed, train, and equip larger armies. They were just better at all those other things. Now, you're also seeing in here these Civil War synonyms. These are just things to help you understand a little bit about what's going on. So on the southern side, you have things like the Gray, Johnny Reb, the Rebels, secessionists, okay, that sort of thing. On the north, you have things like Federals, Yankees, Billy Yank, okay, they're wearing the blue, that sort of thing. And if you just kind of remember those phrases, that'll help you a little bit as we talk about them there, along with the two big ones, of course, Union for the North, Confederacy for the South. Thanks, guys, for paying attention. Hopefully you took good notes, and we'll see you tomorrow.